So you're thinking about making a move to Sumner, Washington, but you're just not quite sure yet if it's the right place for you. Well, in this video, we're going to go through the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, the good and the evil, whatever. Everything you need to know about moving to and living in Sumner, Washington. You're going to stick around to the end because some of these cons are going to be things you're not going to find on the blogs and websites that you're going to see online. It's things we've learned from being here ourselves. And we're getting after it right now. One of the biggest pros for living in Sumner, Washington has just got to be the small town feel and overall family-friendly environment. Sumner has such an amazing small town charm. Right now we're just in Sumner's little downtown area, and you can see there's little bookstores and restaurants, boutiques. This over here, the blue, that is a Goodwill consignment shop where they actually go in. They kind of go through Goodwill for you and then put all the good thrifting there. And of course, as you in the PNW, thrifting is a huge thing. Sumner is actually the first town I ever experienced when I came to Washington. And I absolutely loved it. And here's why. I was born and raised early on in a small town called Baxter Springs, Kansas. Very, very Main Street America. Everyone knew each other. My friend Matt, his dad Les, owned the auto parts store. And that was the only place you got your auto parts. You just had that tight-knit community feel. And Sumner, Washington really embodies that entire lifestyle. Everything out here is just locally owned small businesses from people in the community. Of course, walking by Main Street Tattoo here, so obviously love me getting some tattoos, right? This is just an area that, you know, is so, it has such a feeling of home. It's very familiar for me. If you're coming from someplace that is kind of small town America, or if maybe you're coming from a bigger city and you want, you know, your kids to get to experience that kind of a life, then Sumner is an amazing option for that. Overall, there's, you know, we get excited about football games, we get excited about local sporting events, about the parades, the festivals, everything, but it is all very, very hyper local. More so than I would say really any community around, which makes the small town charm and the feel of a family-friendly environment in Sumner a major pro for me.
One of the best things about downtown Sumner are the community events that they hold down here. My kids have gone to school here in Sumner, elementary, middle school, and high school. So we're pretty familiar with what the community events and stuff are here in this area. One of the best ones that they do is the Sumner Rhubarb Festival. That's one of the biggest festivals that they hold throughout the summertime. That is part of the Greater Seafair celebration here in Western Washington. We've talked about that on some other videos and, you know, what other communities hold here, you know, during the summertime as their big community event. The Sumner Rhubarb Festival is definitely the biggest one as far as community events. Some of the other cool things that Sumner holds as far as community events are they do the Sip and Shop, where basically all of the shops in downtown Main Street here will have, you know, a flavor of wine or a wine vendor in there, and you basically pay for a glass, and then you can go from shop to shop to shop and do a wine tasting, all while you're enjoying some shopping down here in the downtown Sumner area. So that's a fun one that my wife and I like to do. She'll go out with her girlfriends and do that on a Friday night when they have that event sometimes. Some of the other things that they do is they also do a drive-in. That's basically just a once a month thing where all of the classic car owners here in downtown or the surrounding areas will drive into downtown. They'll park at one of the areas, just kind of walk around. It's kind of like an impromptu car show, if you will. So that's a fun one that happens. Other things that happen down here in the area are farmers markets. We also have cool things like the homecoming parades, all those kinds of things happen. So Sumner is really that small town feel kind of place that has a lot of community events down here. Rhubarb Festival, Sip and Shop, Homecoming Festival, drive-ins, all different kinds of community events that are really fun down here in Sumner in this really cool, this kind of small town vibe.
Another major pro about living in Sumner, Washington has got to easily be the Bonnie Lake Sumner School District and the educational opportunities that come with going to school here. Now, I'm a little biased, okay? But Chris and I both have kids that are a part of this school district. And coming from the Midwest where class sizes were, well, way too big and kids did not get the attention that they needed, where there weren't great after-school programs or college prep programs, the Sumner Bonnie Lake School District has been a huge positive for us and our family. I have daughters now in Running Start, which means they're going to graduate high school with an associate's degree. We have a son that's got cerebral palsy, and they provided a great IEP to help him get through school. And they're nurturing my youngest, Finley, with a ton of outdoor activities. They spend a lot of time hands-on, being mobile, being out in the woods, and just really, diving into what a little boy needs for education. Not only that, but the Sumner and Bonnie Lake sports events are huge here. Earlier in the video, we talked about community participation and the family environment. Much like you would see in some place like Texas, football and local sports here at the high school are very, very big parts of this community. There's a gigantic homecoming parade that is done every year downtown for the Sumner Bonnie Lake school districts. So one of the things that really makes this a pro not only is the high quality education and the ability for your kids to do things like graduate high school with an associate's degree, but also just the impact and the profound amount of participation that the school has here in its local community. We even have members on the Chamber of Commerce who volunteer from the schools every week, show up, contribute, and help out. They set up internships for young entrepreneurs. This school district is a major, major plus for Sumner. Another major pro of living in Sumner is its location in general. And we're standing here in front of the Sumner station where the commuter train runs, which goes 6 trips from Lakewood all the way up to Seattle and back. Sumner is positioned perfectly right between Seattle and Tacoma. You're a 47-minute drive to Seattle, 22 minutes back down to Tacoma, and you're right at about 30 minutes to get yourself to SeaTac Airport. Now, of course, if you don't want to deal with the traffic, this is why I brought you over here. I wanted you to see that you can come right here to little downtown Sumner. You can jump on the commuter and you can head either way, Seattle or Tacoma, and take that completely off your plate. Being positioned right in the middle of both really comes back to those other points we've talked about, like getting to have the small town feel, but also getting to be really close to all the major metropolitan cities in, just a short amount of time. Not to mention you're 40 minutes to Olympia, probably I'd say 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the day, to Mount Rainier National Park, 15 minutes up to Lake Tapps to get in the boat. Really, this has such a great centralized location. So the general location of Sumner has got to be a major pro.
Hey, we're coming to you down here at Loyalty Park in Sumner. This is one of the oldest parks here in the area and one of our favorite spots to come just do some outdoor activities. It really is a cool location in the center of town where we can come and picnic. The kids can hang out, throw the frisbee, play some football, play on the park. It's really one of the coolest areas here if you're wanting to find some outdoor activities in the Sumner area. One of my favorite things about Loyalty Park is really just all the trees. The trees at this park are massive. I mean, just about a year and a half ago, they had to take down one of the big maple trees here in this park, and there was a huge community uproar. People are like, why are you cutting down the trees? There's no reason for it. It's fine. Well, it was a dangerous tree situation and all of that. And the city wanted to make sure that, you know, the park was safe for its, you know, people coming through. So they had to take the tree down. But one of my favorite things about Loyalty Park is really just the big, massive trees that are here at this park. One of the great outdoor parks here in the area that we get to enjoy. Loyalty Park is a ton of fun because you've got a bunch of different activities here. You've got a horseshoe pit over here, basketball courts, just put in some brand new swing sets over the last year or so, zip line for the kids with a big play structure, and big wide open spaces. Cultural Arts and Sumner Rotary put up this really cool mural by Henry, who's a famous artist in the Seattle area. He's just a fun artist. You'll see some of his artwork on buildings all over the Seattle area, especially in the downtown core. One of the cons, hey, there goes the drone. Did you see it go? We're talking about one of the downsides to living in Sumner. One of the downsides to living in Sumner, honestly, is the cost of living. It's just expensive. For Sumner, we're really talking about 20% higher than the national average in this area. As far as housing is concerned, you're about 40% higher than what you would expect in a typical neighborhood here in the United States. Cost of living for transportation is going to be about 17% higher here in the area. Food and groceries, kind of in that 20 to 22% range. Austin and I actually just had lunch over at Oscar's Annex right by the train station. We had, what did I have? I had some elk sliders. Austin had some fish tacos. We had an appetizer. He had a soda and I had some water. It cost us 44 bucks. That was before the tip. So it's definitely not cheap to live here in the Sumner area. And when we're talking about housing, rents are going to be on the expensive side. For a house, if you want to live in a home and rent it, really you're in that $2,500 to $3,000 range just to start out for a 3-bedroom house. Pretty pricey. Apartments are going to be a little bit less than that depending on the age of them, the location, how many bedrooms they have, all of those kind of factors. But just like we tell you guys all the time, if you're going to spend that much on a rental and the standards are just as high to get into a house, it makes more sense to see if you can buy before you go to rent something, you know, especially at those prices. I mean, that's just crazy. So when it comes to prices of homes, you're kind of in that mid 400 range if you're talking a 2-bedroom house, and prices go up from there. So we're talking $500,000-600,000 for 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom houses. That's pretty pricey when we're talking about housing, you know, here in the Sumner area, Pierce County, Western Washington. So beautiful area. I mean, look at these gorgeous homes, tree-lined streets. It's an amazing place to live. Don't get me wrong. But when we're talking about what's the downside, it's definitely the cost of living. It's expensive. 20% higher on average as far as cost of living across the board goes, 40% higher when we're talking about housing. So not a cheap area to live, but man, is it beautiful down here. Beautiful craftsman homes, beautiful tree-lined streets, parks, schools. There's some amazing things down here in Sumner. One of the downsides, definitely cost of living. Hey, one of the big things about downtown Sumner and the Sumner area is really its lack of entertainment, or nighttime entertainment for that matter. We're down here at Purdy's Pub and restaurant. Purdy's is really cool because they've got an arcade side, a couple of bar areas, and a restaurant area where you can bring the whole family to. And then in the evening, it actually just turns into 21 and over. So this is actually one of the only entertainment kind of places here in Sumner. You've got the YMCA right across over here. That's a great place. So Purdy's here is a really cool spot because it's got an arcade on one side, it's got a restaurant, a couple of bar areas. So you can bring the whole family down here and enjoy some time. But Sumner doesn't really have much of a nightlife. There's not really a lot of bars, there's not clubs or anything like that. There's not a Top Golf, there's really just not a lot to do as far as entertainment is concerned. Now, yeah, great outdoor spaces, awesome parks, cool restaurants, but as far as like a bar scene or nightlife or, you know, big activities like a fun center or anything like that, there's just not a lot in Sumner. So if you're looking for a hot entertainment place to live, I don't think Sumner's gonna be the right fit for you. It's got a lot of other cool things to offer, but nightlife, activities, things to do, just not high on the list if we're talking about Sumner.
Welcome to Traffic Avenue. This is going to be our next con, the traffic in Sumner, and I'm actually not kidding. This road is literally called Traffic Avenue, and in the morning and at 5 o'clock, this road right here, it sucks. It is awful. One of the biggest pros that we mentioned was the convenient location of living between Seattle and Tacoma, but this has got to be the equal and opposite reaction to that, because no matter where you're at, you're getting squeezed from traffic one way or the other. Sumner also jumps you on to Highway 167, the freeway there. That is literally constantly and always backed up. You're never gonna get out of that scot-free. You're never gonna get out of it easy. It is always a problem, 24/7, 365. So if you love the idea of living in a small town, but you hate the idea of being stuck in traffic a lot, it's probably a big, gigantic red flag for Sumner, because it's always a problem, it's always backed up. In fact, if you were to work in Seattle and you leave here in the morning and you go to 167, you're gonna get out to that exit and it's gonna be gridlock. Those cars aren't even moving. You're gonna be backed up. Hell, you might even be blocked into your exit because there are so many cars stacked waiting to get on 167. If traffic is a problem that you're not willing to deal with, or at least now you're educated, that's something that you really need to know as a major con for living here in Sumner, Washington. All right, as you can see behind me, this mural says, "Live like the mountain is out." Now, what that means is typically whenever you can see the mountain, that means that the sun is also out, shining and beautiful. And this is why it's one of the cons of living in Sumner. If you have to say, live like the mountain is out or live like the sun is out, then the sun probably isn't out enough. Now, again, the climate here sits typically between 33 degrees to 75 degrees. But in the winter, you're gonna have about 5 inches of snow, which doesn't sound too bad. But you're also gonna have about 49 inches of rain, which is about 10 inches more than the national average. So you're gonna have a lot of gray days, you're gonna have a lot of rainy days. There is just gonna be that lack of sunshine. Now, on top of the gray, which is gonna run you from November to basically February, in the midst of that, you're also gonna hit the darkest period of all, where kind of around that Christmas area, we only get 8 to 9 hours of sunlight a day. So, you know, really the weather is beautiful, its climate is temperate, but you're gonna have a lot of rain through the winter and the fall. You're gonna have a lot of gray. And you're not gonna be able to live like the mountain is out. You know why? Because the mountain's not gonna be out. It's gonna be pushed behind a bunch of clouds and covered up by constant drizzle. Now, the summers out here are, again, some of the most beautiful you've ever seen. In fact, today it's literally 90 degrees, sunny. You can't beat it. But don't get tripped up on the fact that the summers are beautiful here, because during the winter, the mountain is not out. It is not warm, and it is a whole of a hell of a lot of gray. The final con to talk about today, one that has some heavy implications really, is the crime rate in Sumner, Washington. Now, overall, if you look at the crime statistics on certain websites, it will say that the crime rate in Sumner ranks as an F, which is really, really bad. Did a little research into this because I've always felt very safe in Sumner. Like I said, I've watched this really small town feel. And the crime rate itself is pretty average for the state. It's pretty average for the national rate. Where Sumner really stands out as far as crimes goes, because there have been no murders, virtually no rape. Violent crime is super, super minimal. But there were things like burglary and larceny. About 280 of the larcenies and about 150 burglaries that happened last year here in Sumner. Again, that's not a whole lot, but when you compare it to other towns that are 10,000 people, it seems pretty high. In fact, poverty crime in Sumner is about double the national average. Chris talked earlier about how Sumner's an expensive place, even for this region. It's an expensive area. And what we found is that when you do studies and you research this stuff, when people are in a high cost area and they are unable to pay their bills, they get stressed out, they fall behind, they're willing to do more risky things. And that is where we see a lot of the crime come from in the Sumner area. There's very, very little violent crime, but we do see crime in the sense of people are just trying to get by. And when they get themselves in a bad situation, they're reacting out of fear and out of desperation. So a total of 400 events throughout an entire year. It doesn't sound that remarkable, but when you consider it being a town of 10,000 people, that's a little less than one act of poverty violence every single day. Therefore, I think it's probably one of the biggest cons in Sumner, Washington. All right, well, there you have it. The pros and the cons of living in Sumner, Washington. I hope this video has helped you decide whether or not building a life here in Sumner makes sense for you and your family. Just remember, Chris, myself, and our team, we are getting phone calls, texts, and emails every single day from people just like you, and we absolutely love it. So whether or not you're looking at making that move out here to Sumner in the next 3 days or the next 3 months, shoot us a phone call, text, or an email so we can help you make that smooth move out here to Sumner. And until next time, I cannot wait till you're out here so that we can show you around.